China is dominating industries all over the world. They're not just producing cheap goods anymore. They're trying to take over next-generation industries like electric vehicles, solar power, and batteries. Why is all of this happening right now? Today, I'm going to tell you about the shocking secret behind how China is taking over the entire world. Let's get right into it. First, let's take a look at the current situation. Right now, China accounts for 31% of the world's total manufacturing output. China has been the world's #1 manufacturing powerhouse for 14 consecutive years up to 2023. In 2023, they even surpassed Japan to become the world's top car exporter. China accounts for as much as 46% of the world's shipbuilding output. As a side note, the United States' share of the global shipbuilding industry is actually less than 1%. Now, China is truly living up to its reputation as the factory of the world. As companies shifted low-wage industries from China to India and Southeast Asia, China's dominance appeared to weaken. For example, in Shenzhen alone, more than 15,000 companies have withdrawn. But now, China is gradually taking over global industries one by one, based on its powerful manufacturing sector. It's no longer just about cheap Chinese products. China is now aiming to dominate next-generation industries like electric vehicles, batteries, and solar power. For example, in the solar industry, China has already taken over. According to the US National Renewable Energy Laboratory, 8 out of the world's top 10 solar companies are Chinese. In fact, from the #1 company, Tongwei, to the 5th, Jinko, they're all Chinese companies. These companies control 90% of the global solar market. Even the remaining 10% comes from Southeast Asian countries. But those products are also related to China. The reason Chinese solar companies have been able to monopolize the global market like this is because of China's subsidy policies. The reason Chinese solar companies can do so well is that they're cheaper than companies from other countries. And since the performance is similar, people naturally have no choice but to use Chinese solar products. Since 2005, China has continuously announced policies to support solar power generation, promoting the popularization of solar technology. They started giving massive subsidies to companies. Over the past 10 years, they've poured in a staggering 150 trillion won in subsidies. Of course, subsidies have many side effects. For some Chinese companies, it's easy money, but for others, it served as the lubricant needed to achieve economies of scale. Thanks to subsidies, Chinese companies could offer products up to 90% cheaper than competitors, making survival difficult for others. China's subsidy policy is quite threatening. For example, China's electric vehicle industry is booming. In 2023, China sold 8.2 million of the 13.7 million global electric vehicles, ranking first. China's leading electric vehicle company, BYD, sold 867,000 units from January to April 2024, achieving a global market share of 20.2% and once again taking the top spot. If you compare it to 2012, when they sold 13,000 units, in 2023, they sold 9,495,000 units. You can see that they've grown about 730 times. Their rapid growth was also due to government subsidies in China. Research from the Center for Strategic and International Studies in the US shows that over the past 15 years, the Chinese government invested 321 trillion won in the electric vehicle industry through subsidies and support funds. Between 2009 and 2023, electric vehicle purchase tax reductions totaled 164 trillion won. Over half of subsidies for China's electric vehicle industry were acquisition tax reductions. As a result, companies expanded, and with many Chinese buying EVs from local firms, the industry came to dominate the market. Our country is also facing threats in many industries due to China's subsidy policies. One of the most representative industries is shipbuilding. In 2019, our country recorded a global order share of 31%. China had 37%, so ours was a bit lower, but the difference wasn't that big. Japan had 17%. So the three countries, Korea, China, and Japan, accounted for 85% of the global market. The problem is that after the outbreak of COVID-19, there was a surge in large-scale orders, and the global shipbuilding market entered a new boom period. However, during this boom period, the order share among the three countries, Korea, China, and Japan, changed significantly. As of 2024, Korea holds 20%, China 67%, and Japan 4%. Of course, this level of orders is still enough to sustain domestic shipbuilders, so there isn't an immediate problem, but you can see that China's global share has risen considerably. On top of that, China has been gradually eating into Korea's previously solid share of LNG carrier orders. The reason China's shipbuilding industry has been able to grow so rapidly is, once again, thanks to its subsidy policies. These subsidies have boosted their competitiveness, and they've been able to secure large-scale orders by offering advantages in price and delivery times. In the end, even Korea's flagship shipbuilding industry has been taken over by China. Furthermore, in the OLED market, Chinese display companies surpassed Korea's market share for the first time in 2024, putting even the OLED market at risk of being lost. In the case of OLEDs, high technical skills are required, so
기업들이 주도권을 잡고 있었습니다.
But Chinese companies have started to catch up with this little by little. After dominating the global LCD market with aggressive low pricing, Chinese companies are now advancing in OLEDs as well, threatening the entire Korean display industry. Of course, for now, the quality and yield of Chinese OLEDs are still lower than Korea's, so it seems they haven't surpassed Korean technology yet. However, as I explained earlier, if China keeps pushing with subsidies, Korean companies won't be able to hold out. How can they withstand such aggressive low pricing? According to the market research firm Display Supply Chain, from 2020 to 2027, 85% of global spending on display equipment is expected to come from Chinese manufacturers. In contrast, Korea's share is expected to be only 12%. This means the display market is being taken away. Naturally, the Western world, including Korea, can't help but be dissatisfied with China's actions. When China grows its companies through massive subsidies, existing companies are forced to compete. If the Chinese government provides enormous subsidies to reduce costs, the existing companies simply can't hold out in the end. Korea has lost its top spot in many industries to China for reasons like this. Currently, China has what are called the new three major industries: electric vehicles, solar energy products, and lithium batteries. If you look at how these industries have grown, it's all thanks to massive government subsidies from the Chinese government. Because of this, the Western world has started to take action. The United States is already tightening controls on exports of advanced technology products to China, and both the EU and the US have even defined this as a national security issue. That's why recently President Trump has imposed massive tariffs on China. In the case of the EU, they judged that illegal subsidies were making competition unfair and announced that they would apply tariffs of up to 45.3% on Chinese electric vehicles for the next 5 years. The US has imposed tariffs of up to 100% on Chinese electric vehicles, and Canada has also applied 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. In the electric vehicle sector, China is trying to avoid these tariff measures by selling to the US through Mexico. US Congress is considering regulating Chinese electric vehicle companies operating in third countries by imposing company-based, not country-based tariffs. Essentially, any Chinese company would face tariffs. Checklist: identify and remove redundancy, condense explanations, retain key actions and outcomes, preserve names and locations, maintain grammatical accuracy. The shipbuilding industry is moving to check China. The US plans a 25% tariff on Chinese STS cranes and is investigating China's shipbuilding and shipping industries. Canada is considering extending its 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles to ships, following requests from the Canadian Marine and Shipbuilding Association. The European Shipyards and Marine Equipment Association has urged the European Parliament for a comprehensive maritime strategy and tariffs on Chinese ships. These moves may slow China's shipbuilding industry, potentially benefiting Korea. Still, subsidy policies alone haven't made China a leader in all industries, such as aircraft or semiconductors. However, China's subsidy policy has tremendous power to trigger a price war with other countries and drive their companies out of business, so figuring out how to deal with this subsidy policy remains a challenge for us. Right now, China is taking over industry after industry, and this strategy will likely continue. This isn't just an issue for some companies. It could impact the entire world economy and the future of industries. We must ask, what solutions should the Western world and our country pursue to counter China? Which path should we choose in these changing times? What are your thoughts on China's current subsidy policy? Let us know in the comments. That's the end of the video. Thank you.